Unlocking doors to your dream home. Keys to the Castle takes you on a real estate journey like never before. Welcome to the podcast where every key opens a door to possibilities.
Welcome back to the Keys to the Castle podcast. I'm your host, Basendra Melaram, and I'm here in the new year with my two buds, Jason and Jason, Mr. Marcus and Mr. Jason Kleiger.
Hello. Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year. So now I got to spend 3 months writing 2023 and then erasing it and writing 2024.
It's very important on contracts to make sure you get that date right. I think we covered that.
Yeah, it's going to take a while.
And checks too.
Checks are more important. So.
Today we're joined in the new year with Miss Christina Shaw of Allstate Insurance. How are you, Christina?
Hello. Thank you for having me here.
Thanks for joining us in the new year.
Happy New Year.
Thank you. Christina, so our series of podcasts are revolving around home ownership, buying, selling, and basically encompassing all things real estate. And insurance plays a big role in that. So you're here today to help us figure out the nuances about insurance for homes. So tell us a little bit about yourself and your experience as an insurance agent.
Awesome. Well, again, thank you for having me, and it's nice meeting you gentlemen.
Welcome.
Thank you. So I have been an Allstate agent, don't tell anybody, for 26 years. I absolutely love what I do, and our primary focus is helping first-time home buyers and just home buyers in general purchasing property insurance, bundling that with auto insurance, and navigating them through the process. A lot of folks don't know that we write with about a dozen other companies other than Allstate, and that's important because we're going to make sure all your coverage is where it needs to be, but it's also competitively priced. And I have a team of 11 in the office.
What?
And we're very involved in the community. We kind of feel that it's the community that allows us to win in our business, so we're involved.
That's
I have
good.
two young children who think they're Kardashians, but they're not. So I'll be working for a long time, but that's just a little bit about I live right here on Long Island.
Nice. I like that. I like practicing where you live.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, like you said, community, you got to live there too.
Yeah.
It really is. There's just this culture at Allstate that you're involved. I don't even know how it kind of happens, but you become an Allstate agent and you just like learn that that's the way to do business. It's kind of special.
Very nice. That's good to know.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So today I want to talk to you a little bit about not only homeowners insurance, but also flood insurance, because that's a big thing here in New York, especially on Long Island. And there are some changes, and there's a lot of misinformation about federal flood insurance as opposed to private insurance.
Yes.
And I know it could be a little bit daunting and repetitive, but I'm pretty sure you can clarify a lot of these things for us. So please.
Absolutely. And this is, I don't want to say it's boring flood insurance, right? But don't get too involved with the minutia. No pressure. Don't. I guess my best advice is when you're a realtor and you think that flood insurance is necessary, make sure you have that relationship with your insurance agent that you work with, right? Because Risk Rating 2.0 happened about 2 years ago, and it completely changed how FEMA underwrites a flood insurance policy. It used to be, here's your flood zone. Is it your primary residence? And is there a basement or are you on a slab? And then there was your rate. It was just that simple, right? Mm-hmm. And then Risk Rating 2.0 happened because FEMA wanted to try to level the playing field, right? Myself, who lives in Lido Beach, shouldn't pay the same rate as the gal north of Merrick Road in Merrick. So they're now looking at 4 factors that go into your flood insurance rate once it's determined that you're in a flood zone. So your flood zone would be typically AE. Your X, the bank isn't going to require you to buy flood insurance. So it's important that agents know what those 4 factors are. And it's also important, I think, that when you're a realtor and you're going on a listing appointment, you know the current zone of the home, but you also know if that seller has a current policy. So let's say the home is in zone AE, but the seller has a policy from 10 years ago, and it's a zone X policy, right? So significantly less money. That incoming buyer can assume the zone X policy. And if I were the listing agent, I would want to write in one key on the remarks, hey, you're going to call your insurance agent. They're going to tell you it's $2,400, but you could take over this policy that's $800.
That's
Are
good.
the insurance companies inclined to pass that along? Because I would think that they're going to make more money with the zoning now.
That's a really great question. I think that most agents do know about this, but it is a lot of paperwork. We're always happy to do it. But both parties have to, sign the paperwork, and the agent has to know how to process it. So once the agent knows that, I can't imagine why somebody wouldn't want to help the buyer. But I heard you earlier saying, like, you're always doing the right thing. I'm always doing the right thing. So could you find somebody who doesn't want to do that? Absolutely.
Sure.
It's important, though, when that buyer takes over the policy, that rate will change over time and get to that fully actualized rate. But it can never go up more than 18% a year. So that buyer has a little bit of a runway to get used to that higher payment.
Now, on the mortgage side, I see this a lot where and I probably should have asked this question well before now, but since you're here, I will ask it. I've had a person buying $1 million house. I have a person buying a $500,000 house, but it seems like they cap those flood insurance policies at a specific amount for
Yes.
the coverage. Can you hit that?
Sure.
Talk about that
So the flood insurance is capped at $250,000 under the FEMA policy. If you, the bank, needs, wants, requires more coverage, we can do that through a private flood carrier. But in my experience, most banks will take that $250,000 limit on the structure.
Yeah, because that's what I see all the time. It's like every policy I see, it's $250. I'm
Yeah.
like, how come it doesn't matter? Then I just use laws of logic where it's like, I guess the payouts on these things due to flooding probably never exceed
that number.
Right. So it makes
And
sense.
a few times somebody will come to me and say, I need more coverage or I want more coverage, and then we could go to one of our private carriers, which you had asked earlier. More times than not, we're writing FEMA policies, but more and more we're seeing people wanting private flood insurance because generally it's less expensive. It's not backed by the government, though, in the event of say, Superstorm Sandy. So pros and cons to each, for sure.
That always, that's another thing that always made me nervous, where if you're not required for flood insurance, and a lot of people didn't know, they got hit with that storm, you get flooding, you're just assuming that your homeowner's insurance policy is going to pick it up, and then you're just devastated to find out that it won't cover a lot of that damage that occurred. So I remember, especially during those years, hearing a lot of those just sad stories. Are you ever having those conversations with people that might not be or are in that X zone where they don't require flood insurance, but you kind of can see where, I don't know, basements seeing water or things like that? Where do you have those types of discussions?
All the time. So, like you said, pre-Sandy, or maybe even pre-Irene, the year before Sandy, it wasn't a common practice. If you were in Zone X, we weren't really talking about flood insurance unless you, the consumer, were asking. Now we're speaking about it on every single new client referred to us, and you're also signing something saying this does not cover flood insurance and the definition of what that means.
Helps.
I joke around, I have big hair. I don't need my hair to be any bigger, so I want everybody to understand this is what's going on. And on my Zone X folks, I'll say, talk to the neighbors. I can't make that decision for you. If the house has never had water, that used to be a good indication. It's no longer. Like you were saying, Queens. Look at what happened
Brooklyn,
last year.
Queens, yep.
Places that have never flooded. So
Never.
that I don't know anymore, that's kind of out the window these days.
Yeah, there's 12 inches of water in the subway.
Not even. I mean, you saw what was going on in Brooklyn only a couple months ago. I mean,
Oh yeah,
it's just
buses
a
couldn't go
river,
by. Yeah.
and then tragically, someone in the basement apartment in
Oh, they
Queens.
couldn't get out.
Devastating.
I think that was in Astoria.
Yeah, Astoria. They couldn't get out,
It's
yeah.
terrible. So it's something that I believe, obviously, putting certain aspersions aside, but I believe is only going to become more and more
Yes.
of an issue as we move on in the years. No one has seen these types of floods. Regardless of where you are, and you always thought, okay, I have the highest house in this neighborhood, and the next thing you know, you're dealing
underwater.
With,
Yeah.
Never know where those water tables are going to rise to also. So I have a friend where it's same thing, not necessarily a surface problem. He has an underlying problem. So it's like that table somehow, some way came up, and now he's seeing every time it rains, it's just a nightmare for him.
And that panic, right? Like with the weather.
Because that's very uncontrollable. I mean, we've been in those wind situations where you're sitting there, you're like, it's unsettling, but it's like, all right, a lot of that stuff's external with the wind damage. You start getting the water in, and water's weird. Like, it finds its way, like, trying to figure out where it's coming from. Like, I've had my pool hose battles with so you are speaking to a well-versed water management expert.
That's funny.
I didn't know you started a new career.
It
That's
feels
funny.
like it. Hiring feels like it.
Well, after I had Sandy, I the year after moved because I had my second daughter, and I bought a house in Lido Beach, and unfortunately, I lost it to a complete house fire. The good news story is it's beautifully rebuilt, and nobody was injured.
Thank
But
God.
I joke that I experience natural disasters like it's nobody's business, because after Sandy and a fire, it really puts the work that we all do in perspective.
Oh, definitely.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, how are these flood zones determined, and how often does the government make assessments to move them?
The
Because
flood
that's-
zones rarely change. They do change, but it's not changing on an annual basis or even every other year. And FEMA determines the zones. And you'd be surprised. You could have two neighbors, and you could have a house in AE and a house in X. My CPA, who I insure in Long Beach a bunch of years ago before it all got zoned into AE, he was zone X and he lived one house from the ocean. So you can't really apply logic to the zone. That's where
Anything about the government?
Did we just say government logic in the same
I
sentence?
did. I know.
FEMA's supposed to help us?
What?
So you need to have that relationship with your insurance agent where you say, hey, what zone is this house in? And it should be as simple. You could go on FEMA's website, but I joke that you need to be an MIT graduate
definitely
because
do. Yeah.
the time it takes you, just send a text to your insurance agent and you'll get the zone.
Right, because I've done that,
Yeah, it's not.
and I'm saying to myself, I consider myself a pretty smart guy,
Pretty smart.
and I'm looking at this thing
No.
No.
like, what is happening?
Yeah.
It's funny because for rent-controlled apartments, you actually have to disclose what if it's in what flood zone it's in or anything, even in Manhattan. And once in a while I have to advise someone, what flood zone this is in, and I have to go on there, and it's like, there's no rhyme or reason.
No
almost.
rhyme or reason.
It's like, okay, this is on Park Ave, but then over here, and I'm like below this part, but above Harlem, and it really all these squiggly lines and colors, and and then I'm like, wait a second, I just lost the property I was looking for. Where am I?
Just text me. I'll save you all that.
I think I'm gonna do that. So that brings me to my next question, and you touched on it a little bit, which is, if you're in a low risk flood zone, neighboring a higher risk flood zone, is there any recommendation or advice you would give someone in that lower risk flood zone as far as flood insurance goes?
Sure, absolutely. So I think the statistic, and it could have changed a point or two, is 25% of paid flood insurance claim happen in that zone X, that minimal flood zone. And zone X really is just, again, the mortgage bank not requiring the flood insurance. It doesn't mean you're free of flooding. It used to be, prior to risk rating 2.0, if you were in zone X post Sandy, I would tell you you're nuts not to buy flood insurance. It's $499 a year. It gives you that $250, $100,000 on contents. What's to think about? But now I see a lot of flood zone X policies that could be $1,500, $2,000 a year since the change. So you really, you have to draw the line somewhere with insurance, right?
Yeah.
As much as you want to have your home and your flood and your life and your disability, you don't want to be insurance poor. So you know where you're purchasing. You should know the neighborhood, and then you have to make that decision. Is the money worth it? Is the premium worth the risk or not taking the risk?
Now, what about my umbrella policy? Okay, I know that it adds things to my homeowners and my car and all that stuff. Does it have anything to do with the flooding?
Great
Flood
question.
insurance? Is there an umbrella policy that has flood insurance in it?
Great question. So an umbrella policy is strictly liability. And if you want to think about it sitting above your auto and home. So should that liability ever be exhausted, more so on the auto because the likelihood of a bad accident is greater, it kicks in and really it's a shield between you and your assets. So if you call me and say, I have no money in the bank, I don't own a home, and, I live paycheck to paycheck. Like, that person's not a candidate for an umbrella policy. But if you have a home, especially now with values being what they are, and you earn an income, even with or without a savings, an umbrella policy for $1 million, it's like $300 a year. So what you want to think about is, what are my total assets? And does my liability cover what my assets are?
That makes sense.
And that's it. It doesn't have to be complicated. You don't need a $5 million umbrella if your net worth is $2 million.
Right.
What about negative net worth?
Right. So that brings me to something else. I mean, we're going a little askew, but it's okay. We're getting all the points. No, it's not you. Over the course of my career, I've learned that new buyers purchase homeowners policies based on not only the recommendation of their lender, but family members. And it doesn't always equate, or it does not equate to the value or the price of the purchase.
Yes.
So, I'll call them up and say, hey, you're getting ready to close. Did you talk to your lender? Did you find out the policy minimum that you need? Oh, yeah, but I'm buying this house for $500. I'm getting a policy for $500. And then I have to wheel myself back from saying, you don't need a $500 policy. The insurance company is only going to cover the total replacement cost. So that's really what you need.
Yes.
So can you dive a little deeper and explain that?
I love that you said that. Or like, my neighbor said. I'm like, well, what does your neighbor do for a living?
Yeah.
They may be lovely, but so it's completely irrelevant what you're buying the home for, because you have a home in this neighborhood and a home in that neighborhood, and we have two very different values. So we're looking at how much does it cost to rebuild the structure. The land we are not concerning ourselves with. How much does it cost to rebuild the structure and cart away the existing home in the event of a total loss? I have 2 total loss fires going on right now. And both homes were over $50,000 to cart away the existing home that's now rubble on the property. So if anybody says, okay, what are you buying for, or what your loan amount, like, your loan amount has absolutely nothing to do with how much it costs to rebuild. And we will help determine that. And then all insurance companies do an inspection as a good checks and balances. We don't want you underinsured, but we don't want you overinsured either. That's just a waste of money.
It's not beneficial for anyone.
No,
really.
It's a waste of money. And then read the reviews of who you're working with, because at the time of claim, whether it's a pipe burst, a house fire, you're not like, oh my God, I'm so glad I saved that $30. You're like, thank God Christina is answering her phone, or whoever you work with to navigate the claim.
Right. That's customer service in any part of this home purchasing, selling process is key.
That's really what we're promising you, is at the time of claim. I hope it never happens to you, but when it does, this one family, I was sitting in their parents' living room last Friday, and like, we went through everything. They know they're going to be fine, but just to see a human in front of you, to say, I'm going to hold your hand through this process, is powerful.
Yeah, they don't really think about that until they need it. Everything is, oh, wait, there's an app for that. Oh, wait, there's an app for that.
Well, his cars are with another company I won't mention, and He's like, it's
Do
a
they have an
nightmare. I can't get them on the phone. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because there's an app for that.
Yeah.
So going back to this new policy for new homeowners, what would you say are typical misconceptions that you have to help guide them through as far as new policies, any weird things that they ask for to be included or not included?
I think it really depends, right, on the buyer and the education the lender and the realtor either did or didn't do up front. We try to make it simple because it's an overwhelming time, right? And I usually get the buyer at the end of the process, so they're spent
Literally the week before.
And I'm often like
Week.
that.
That's plenty of
The
time.
week. I like doing the week.
I get it at the closing.
I love
table
at the
sometimes.
closing.
That's me.
Can you give this to me in 30 seconds? Sure. So we do our best to keep it simple. We're always price conscious, but again, we explain some people need their jewelry insured. Some people don't have jewelry. Some people should take sewer backup. Some people don't need sewer backup. So it's just really educating them. They don't know the questions most times to ask the insurance agent. So it's us just making sure this policy is the best policy for you, which may not be the best policy for you. And then making sure they maximize all their discounts. They're bundling it with their car insurance, that they have a life insurance policy should something happen to anybody that's buying that house, they're not forced to sell. We do a lot of condo co-op, so that's a whole nother.
Oh, yeah, you're going to have to come back for that one.
So, yeah, we do. So it's really
excited
just
for that one.
education. It's really just education.
So I have a question. Since we're on Long Island, all right, we have a lot of cesspools.
Yeah.
How does that factor in with coverage? Like, what coverage can you get for that if it's available?
Some companies will not even write. A lot of my companies will. And then is it, below ground, has a collapse in the past? But many companies will write with a cesspool.
Great.
Yeah.
Because I know that that's a huge issue when everyone's, cesspool backs up or, God forbid, caves in or I've had issues with that where it backed up into the house and not getting disgusting here. I'm just describing what happened to the house. So
It's a nightmare,
yeah,
literally. It's absolutely
yeah.
a nightmare. And then as an insurance agent, most times, like, this neighborhood has underground cesspools. We need to talk about this.
Yeah, definitely.
I feel like this is the second time you've talked about cesspools.
I just love
on a
cesspools.
different episode.
I
We
love
talked about that
cesspools.
during the home inspection episode.
I love walking around my front yard with my cesspools below me, knowing that I can at any time fall into the cesspool.
Oh, you just like living dangerously.
Oh, yeah.
You like living dangerously.
I got my coffee, I'm in my pajamas and my little slippers.
Yeah, it's 20 degrees out and there's steam rising out of the grass.
Well, I could be.
I got to ask the question, like, falling into the cesspool through the lawn, that's a thing? Like, that's happened to people?
It was a
Wait, it can't have happened.
No, that couldn't have happened to
There was
somebody.
unfortunately, there was a famous case where there was an NYPD detective on narcotics undercover, like seen everything, walking on his front lawn.
Oh, my God.
Yep.
I guess I haven't experienced all
Sorry
the
for
claims.
that,
What?
everybody.
Knock on wood.
Did it kill him?
Yes.
It's only a 6 foot or something drop, no?
It's like, 5-6 feet.
Yeah. I mean,
Well, all the,
So anyway.
all the noxious gas.
yeah. You instantly were like,
Wow.
you drowned.
Yeah.
All right, we could cut that part out.
That is a crapshoot right there.
No, he set that one up good. He set it up good. So, Christina, I know you touched base on it a little bit about the government versus private flood insurance. So I just want to rewind a little bit,
Sure.
going back to that, and help me understand the differences, if any, outside of just being one's backed by the government and one's not.
That's your major difference outside of price. And maybe you could clean me up. I believe that FHA mortgages, you have to have a FEMA policy. They won't accept a private,
Correct.
like an Aon. They won't accept private flood insurance. So that's something that we would discuss also. Like, please speak to your mortgage lender, or I would call your mortgage lender. But your major differences are price, and is this backed by FEMA? So the insurance company could go out of business in a Superstorm Sandy, and though you paid $600 less a year, you now have
no coverage.
They're
it's like
insolvent.
It's like the government's in bed with the government.
The government.
Exactly.
Imagine
Ding,
that.
ding, ding.
Imagine that.
Yeah.
Probably, I don't know the percentage, but it's a high percentage of FEMA policies versus private flood insurance policies.
So, Mr. Marcus, outside of it just being backed by the government and the government has the security of the government, can you see any other reason why the government would only want a government-backed policy?
I think that point was right on the head. It's like you're sitting there and you're not worried that the government's going to run out of money. I mean, I am, but
Yeah, who's going to bankrupt first, the private company or the government?
yeah, like
No, I agree.
I think that's a valid point. I've seen more flood policies that are conventional loans than FHA policies, or like FHA buyers buying in flood zones than conventional, in my experience of that. So I really haven't come across a lot of FHA, and that's just my business.
That's a good...
But it's like there's something to be said about the cost of houses, the prices of it, the loan limits, and like what type of loan you're going to wind up acquiring for said problem.
I never thought to look at it that way.
Yeah, I mean, it's getting there to the point where they're pushing up. Like there was a long time where the loan limits were just not in conjunction with these more heavily priced houses. Now you're starting to get a little bit better, like because well, I guess for our listening audience to understand how the government comes up with it, it's all based on gross median incomes in a given area or given counties on how they come up with these loan limits. So like for a while, or like in the earlier stages of my career, which is the beginning of the 2000s, I don't know how do you say, my wife always uses that word to explain 2000 to 2009. It's called like the nth or like the niths or whatever it's called. Yeah, I don't know what, I'm sorry. Sounded like...
We're going to get a phone call on that.
I'm going to get in trouble. Sorry for whoever I just offended with
Yes, I'm sure
not
it's somebody.
calling that right. But yeah, for a while, like the gross median incomes, like with these property prices, were just not in line. Like they weren't even close. You're starting to get to the point where the loan limits, and I still don't love the way Fannie and Freddie splits it into two tiers. But their high balance tier now being over $1 million, you're starting to get to the point, and FHA always follows suits with this stuff. So you're getting to the point where you can actually borrow money in some of these towns that are closer to the water and a little bit on the higher price levels. But earlier in my career, it was a pretty decent gap.
I'm going to have to investigate that.
Yeah, we'll come back to you guys on that one.
Yeah.
I also wanted to, if I may, on One Key, when you list a property, within 72 hours, my office, there's a little flood insurance tab for realtors listening. And if it's a Zone X property, I will upload a form that says flood insurance is not bank required. And if it's a Zone AE property, I will upload a flood insurance quote on every listing on One Key within 72 hours.
That's great.
So if that helps anybody.
It does.
Knowledge is power.
It does. It actually, I think that is a very marketable piece of information that all the agents listening should.
Yes, it's not only marketable, but it's knowledgeable too.
Right. The three of us always sit here every Tuesday.
Unfortunately.
Right. Yeah, I got to stare across at you. Right. So the three of us always sit at this table with another professional only to do the one thing, which is provide education and give back to those who are thinking about purchasing their home and all the little processes in between. So, these are all little good tidbits of...
Well, I think I interrupted you.
No,
so
no,
I
you didn't.
apologize.
No, you
I
didn't.
just didn't want to forget about the One Key piece. And
He's staring at me, and he's just,
Yeah,
my
I'm
good
mesmerized
looks,
by your locks.
Yes, all two of them.
So, Christina, insurance premiums, how are they determined outside of flood insurance? How are they determined? What are the cost factors the insurance companies use when determining a policy outside of location?
you're going to need a lot of time. No. So what surprises most people, what we're looking at first is your insurance score. So I am not running a FICO. I don't see what you see. However, there is an insurance score that everybody has, and that is making up a large part of your insurance premium, whether you like it or not. The philosophy is those with better credit have less claims, or have the likelihood of having less claims. Maybe you will not fall asleep with a candle on, or leave the stove on, or turn off your heat in the winter. These are just like some examples I'm throwing out there. So they're looking at your insurance score. Again, I don't see a FICO, so I can't come back to you and say, well, these are the reasons why. It's a soft hit, if I'm saying that correctly. And then it's going to be things like the replacement cost of your home. Is your home frame or is it brick? What kind of walls do you have? Are they sheetrock? Your bathrooms and your kitchen. Do you have a Home Depot kitchen, or do you have Italian marble in your kitchen? So all these factors are going to determine. And then discounts, like do you have an alarm that reports to a central station? Some of my companies give a 38% discount for bundling the car insurance. Like, that's a lot of money, 38%, right?
That's huge.
I always tell my
38%.
team, stop saying 38% and say the dollar. Like, you will save $812 by letting us quote your car insurance.
But that's not what the lizard says.
The lizard, I have to tell you, what a fantastic job they do at branding, because folks are so loyal to an 800 number.
Oh, yeah.
Love
They
that
like
company.
love, and I'm like,
love.
you love an 800 number, but I will tell you, their people are well trained.
They
When
are.
I see a Geico resume, I am interested in interviewing you. They're well trained. My service manager is from Geico.
Okay.
And they just actually did a pretty big layoff today. Geico. The insurance market in New York we were talking about is kind of upside down right now.
I always thought up until 5 minutes ago that I was supposed to idiot-proof my house, but now I know I need to idiot-proof myself.
What?
But that's what it sounds like. It's like if,
yeah.
if my insurance rates are going to be based off of me being an idiot, then I need to do more things to not be an idiot.
Well, I have a question. So, like, let's say someone does make a claim, and let's say it's like $60,000, big flood, or big, dripping down, mold, ruins the kitchen, or anything like that. How does that affect their premium going forward?
That's a great question. It depends on the insurance company, right? If they have any like claim-free discount, but you're not going to be dropped. That's like a big misconception that if I file a claim, my insurance company is going to drop me. I'm not saying you want to file multiple frivolous claims, because then you could have a frequency issue, right, and be dropped. But if you have a major claim, or a claim, doesn't have to be major, again, that's why you want that relationship. Hey, Christina, here's this situation. What do? We want to make sure if your deductible is $2,500, you're not filing a claim for $2,800. That's just dumb. But you're generally not going to see a rate increase unless you have a claim-free
Because
discount.
I've always heard about
Of
people
course.
being so nervous, and I'm like, oh, you got insurance.
That's why you have insurance.
Yeah.
But remember, insurance is sudden and accidental, right? It's not maintenance. So sometimes that's a tough conversation when a client that's been with me for 18 years has a leak and I have to say it's not covered. And they're like, yeah, but I've been with you. I'm like, I know, I love you. You're so great, but it's still not covered. It's a pipe burst is covered. But your toilet leaking is not covered. That's like the joy of owning a home.
Yeah. It's one of the pitfalls.
I wound up, speaking of the lizard, we had to drop them because perfect driving record, me and my wife, year after year after year, and it was just increase after increase after increase after increase. I live in Queens, and it was one of those situations where I found a policy at half through one of my, broker friends who would like, you're not losing coverage here, but it's like, he literally told me I'm too good to be with them.
Well, it's amazing when people are like, you can't beat it, Christina. And I always say, this is a win-win. I will look at your insurance and be the first person to say, stay put, you have a great rate. I'll look at your coverage, I'll make sure it's right, or I'll save you a lot of money. Like, there's no harm. I'm not showing up at your house to, like, steal your credit card. And, like, that's not our style in
force
the
you to sign
office.
your
No.
policy.
So it's a win-win. And in your case, you won.
And it's funny because the bundling portion of it and the homeowner's insurance was with somebody else, that's exactly what he did. He's like, it's going to make sense on the auto insurance. You're not going to do enough to make you kind of taint your relationship with somebody that you trusted to get your homeowner's insurance policy. I'm not going to advise you to sit there to save $100 to move
Smart.
that. But the car insurance was so drastically different. And it's worth our listening audience to call Christina, have a conversation. Like she said, she'll be the first person to tell you if it doesn't make sense, as anybody that's good and professional will do. But it's worth at least assessing that once a year, once every couple of years, just to kind of see if
I do it every two.
Company
Every
is
2
taking
years.
advantage.
Yeah.
Because, I had a very good situation with Geico in regards to the side of it on the customer service side. They seem to be good, but I have friends that actually work there that aren't overly happy with how things operate there, and not slaying that company. Like, this is all based on numbers. Like, the numbers were just every year 15% increase. I'm not getting into accidents. I'm not getting tickets. Why are you guys punishing me because other people are having these issues? So
Okay, I'm on your train right now. So when I question them, they tell me it's a statewide increase. And I say, well, show me where the statewide increase is. And they're unable to do it. They put a supervisor on the phone. Well, it's everyone has to pay because there's large instances of uninsured drivers, out-of-state drivers, people with fake tax.
not my problem.
It's not my problem.
Not my problem.
We're going through a rate increase right now. Allstate and all the major companies.
I can't be mad now.
Our average will be 14.6. This what we're in right now. Some will see less, some will see more. And what's happening today is the cost of inflation, like whatever inflation is, I don't know, 8 or 9%. In our industry, it's 30, 40%. So your used car that used to be worth $20,000 is suddenly worth $35,000. And so the reason so many insurance companies have pulled out of the state here in New York is because they couldn't get rate and it wasn't profitable to write business. So as much as right now, like this rate increase is just hitting, and these are going to be tough conversations the next few months. But I also know if we don't take this, we can't get back to writing profitable business. So it's really challenging. And again, it's that relationship of when you call one, I tell my team, like, just be straightforward right away. We're not looking into anything. We're not, like, we know the answer, deliver the answer, and then review that policy and make sure every discount. And then if you get quotes for less, we'll hold your hand through the process because I want to win your business back.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, that's just like, it's very black and white, which sometimes is easy. And then other times you're like, oh, God, but I love this customer. I wish there was like some magic button I could hit.
Oh, yeah, we get caught in the middle of this stuff all the time.
Yeah.
And the toughest part is being in a capitalist system and not going too crazy soapbox-wise right here. It's like we're looking at like astronomical amounts of profitability, and it's like, how on one side of the fence are we supposed to go to the insurance companies and tell them in a free market system that they're limited to what they're going to earn in profits, but also on the consumer protection side, protect the consumer from the big bad wolf trying to steal money from them? So like, I'm consistently looking at this conundrum, and a guy that's in the solutions business unfortunately has no solution for that.
Yeah.
Perfectly said. Perfectly said.
All right, I'm going to mic drop now, and I'm going to walk out of here because I think it would look cool, but this is just radio. There we go.
I'm curious about one thing. Are there anything?
Just one.
Just one thing. It's still early in the year. Are there any things current homeowners, new homeowners alike, can do proactively to get their rate lower?
Proactively.
Right? So I'm a new homeowner. We got this policy with you. What advice would you give me moving forward in an effort to bring my premium down?
That's a good question. Policy reviews. Making sure you're working with an agency that's proactively reaching out to you because things change. The homeowner policy or property, you're I don't want to say you're capped, but there's not as much flexibility than, say, on an auto where I can say, hey, go take the defensive driving class. We teach it for free in my office. Come on in. Or put drive-wise on your phone where if you drive under a certain amount of miles, you'll get a really significant discount. Hey, let's increase your deductible. Like it used to be when I started 100 years ago, people had a $250 or a $500 deductible. Even a $1,000 deductible is coming a thing of the past, and people are taking a $2,500 deductible to offset that cost. It could save $300 to $600 on your homeowner premium, but you have to also have that money to come out of pocket should something happen. So there's more flexibility on an auto policy in the way of reducing premium, in my opinion, than on a property policy.
Well, what about
outside of changing coverage, of course?
Right. So outside of a home security system, like you said, that transmits back to a central station, is that what you said? Are there any security measures? You know, I'm on the same train as...
So, like, I get a lot, hey, I have a Ring doorbell. You know, unfortunately, that
you can watch yourself get wrong.
Yes. Oh my God. Last night, we're in Lido, I guess some gentleman was like ringing doorbells at 4:30 in the morning, and I was like, I have to stop. I get like hung up on, you know, texting every neighbor. I'm like, why am I disrupting their day? They're like, you know, going about their day. But outside of the alarm bundling, there's not much that you're going to do without sacrificing coverage.
So here's one thing that I've always told.
A new roof. I mean, that's like major, though. You're not putting on a new roof to save a few bucks.
No, not unless it's needed. Yeah. So I tell a lot of new homeowners or younger new homeowners, check with your insurance carrier or agent before you buy the dog. Because growing up, I couldn't have a specific breed because my father used to tell me, if you get that dog and you bring that dog home, we're not going to have homeowners insurance. Yeah. You know, my father was a realtor before me. So he used to tell me all the time, he's like, no, you can't have that dog. I'm like, but why? It's the one from the Hess commercial. It's a Dalmatian. He said, no, Dalmatians. Yeah. So I got to train them well. And young Bassandra doesn't know. So I'm saying, but Dad, it's not a pit bull. No hate to the pit bulls because they're super cute. It's not a pit bull. It's a Dalmatian. They work with the fire department, Dad. He says... There are
101 of them.
Yeah. And he says to me, no.
That's
the insurance company will drop us.
Well, if your dad is listening, if he is with us...
He's no longer with us,
I'm sorry.
I'm sure he's listening.
That is not true any longer. So there was once a time that if you had multiples of a certain breed... pit bulls, German shepherds, a few others, you would not be able to get a new policy. But if you had a policy and purchased that breed, that's okay, right? So you've had insurance for 10 years and you go get the pit bull, not an issue. You were getting a new policy and you had maybe 2 pit bulls, that could very well be a problem and we wouldn't be able to write the insurance, but that's no longer the case. My advice, though, is if you have one of those breeds, going back to the umbrella policy, you may want an umbrella policy. Even I had 2 beagles when I was married. I mean, my beagles were not taking off your arm. But I had an umbrella policy. That was one of my reasons, because I don't know that if a baby comes in the house, they're not, going to take a nip out of the leg. They're a dog. So you may want to be protected, but now you can pretty much get insurance. Now, if you're a breeder or something, that's a whole different conversation. But if you're just if you're just a homeowner who has a few dogs, that's okay.
Okay, so let's just say in the event something happens with the house, whether it's catastrophic, act of God, what's the process to file a claim?
That's a really good question. For my customers, I want you to call my office right away. And then we can guide you, and if it's after hours or the weekend, I want you to call me personally if it's catastrophic. If it's not, and you call our office, all states 24/7, right? Or all of our companies, I should say, are that. So we're going to talk about making sure this is a claim. that we have to file it. I want you to understand your deductible and the process. I want you to take as many photos as you can and video. And I just want to walk you through what to expect. And I think that eliminates a lot of frustration, right? Like, these are the next steps. We have a fantastic claims department, but people are human, right? And sometimes things go sideways. So early on, I let you know if there's a bump in the road, you need to reach out to me, and that's my job to be your advocate. And we work in tandem with our claims department.
Okay, so there's nothing really for the homeowner to do other than document and
call us immediately. And let's have a conversation about the claim.
No, that's crucial because talking to someone, especially when you know them, during these issues and whatever, if it's catastrophic or even if you just don't know the process,
it's stressful.
Oh yeah.
Even when I was going through my fire, I mean, I'm an insurance agent, and there were moments where I'm like, I'm just overwhelmed because you're still a human. In my case, I lost every possession, my home, and it's just a lot for anybody to process. So to eliminate the frustration of like trying to reach a claim adjuster, just call me. That's why we're here.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah.
You could also use our app. Like if it's a simple claim,
right?
Like the other day, I was waiting for my boyfriend's mother to get in the car on the Upper East Side. We literally just stopped for 1 nanosecond to have her open the door. And this nice man driving a U-Haul from Michigan just like takes off, the side of the car because he thought he could get through. And he was so nice, I actually felt bad for him. But that's like something, take some pictures, get an estimate, upload it on the app, 1, 2, 3. It's not complicated. And it also depends on you, the user, right? I have people who don't want to talk to me. They want to do everything on the app, and then that's okay.
Right, but at some point they're going to have to talk to someone if they have a claim. Someone's going to have to come visit them.
If it's simple like that, a lot of times we'll just deposit the money right into your bank account. If you upload the photos, the estimate, it's under a certain number.
So you just need the routing number, or what?
We just get your banking information, and it's that simple. It's that simple. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, that's very cool.
Yeah. I think she's answered pretty much everything else that I would have asked. I'm trying to think of it from a consumer perspective.
I have a question for Mr. Marcus here.
Oh, I'm
maybe
ready.
you know, maybe you don't. All right, so I'm sorry to put you on the spot. How do lenders, when the purchaser does not obtain insurance, homeowners insurance, how do lenders pick it for them? And do you know how?
There's no picking. You just got to get it.
Well,
I can't close a purchase without insurance
so it's not
in place.
Yeah, but there would be for example, I've done plenty of closings where the purchaser just decides that, or just forgets or omits getting homeowners insurance. So at the closing, as part of the closing costs that are removed from the net proceeds by the bank, is money for an insurance policy, where the bank has just bought this person an insurance policy, and this person didn't even know it.
Whoa, that's crazy.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I've never seen that
I've
happen.
never...
Oh, yeah, I see it all.
Because that
I
sounds...
see it after the fact. So, like 3 years in, let's say they let their homeowners
the
insurance
forced place.
go,
Yeah, that
forced
is-
place
and
policy.
they force place, and it's always at like 5 times the cost. But I don't know the process, but I've
from
never seen it early.
From inception, I've never...
Yeah, not from inception. And understand that, like, when these loans get originated, most of the time, the originating lender isn't who the servicer is. So the servicer is going to have to deal with that.
Yeah.
And then, like you guys were just talking about, they'll just force insurance upon you. But the bank won't let you originate without, they won't let me originate without it, any bank that I've worked for thus far.
Yeah, because I'll look at the CD, and it's not paid outside of closing. It's right there being taken, sucked right out of their net proceeds. And I'm like, yeah, this is your insurance policy.
So they got that number at the table?
They get that number at the table, and their bank is the one taking it out. It's not prepaid, a year in advance or anything like that by the purchaser. It's just straight up taken out. And I'm like, yeah, your bank bought your policy for you because apparently you didn't pick one.
And apparently you should have listened to me when I told you last week to go get a policy.
Yeah. And so I always tell them that you could, change it in a few days.
And they'll give you your money back.
To review it with someone, and because who knows what they just picked for you.
I'm going to use logic based on this entire conversation and come up with the fact that if it's if you can save more by doing auto than you can do home, is it my best bet to just buy a mobile home?
Shipping containers.
Shipping container bundle right in there.
I love
Second mic drop.
I love it.
Oh, that wasn't a real question?
We're all waiting for the answer.
I don't know the answer.
I'm at the
personally.
edge of my seat. Like, wait, what's going to happen next?
But I can buy. I am going to buy an RV, so I guess I'm going to delve into that. What's it? How are those policies?
That's a completely separate policy, super affordable. I want to buy an RV and drive across the country, but I haven't had any takers that want to do that. So.
Oh, I'm in to win it. We've been talking about it for a long time.
I feel like that's an awesome way to see the country
100%.
and not checking in, checking out of a hotel. I don't know.
I'm getting out of Dodge. That's what I'm doing.
So for the past 6 months, I've been looking at the conversion vans that, like an old Amazon van
Yep.
type of thing to convert into an RV.
You could follow those people on TikTok. You could go down like a really... Yeah.
No, well, I've gone down a lot of rabbit holes.
Yes. I'm
I've
like,
gone
wait,
down
why
way
am I
too many.
watching this woman's life in her
Yeah,
van?
yeah.
Like, yeah.
So, but I really want to build it myself. So I'm looking for cabinetry workers now.
God.
Yeah, that's how bad it is.
Oh, wow. Oh,
To
see, I just
custom build
watch
my
it on
cabinet,
TikTok.
and I bought all the hardware from a shipping supply store, like seagoing shipping supply, where they sell hardware for ships, because that's what you're supposed to use
Oh, wow.
to keep the drawers and stuff from
Yeah,
flying
take it
over.
into
Take
Right.
it into the lake or something?
Yeah.
I took my first vacation last summer in an RV in Southern Oregon. I flew to Portland
sounds
to
really nice.
meet a good friend, and we got in her RV, and she has RV friends. And we get to the RV park, and I'm like looking around. They're like, "What's up with your friend?" And she's like, "Oh, she's never been in an RV to a park." They were looking at me like, "Where is she from?" And I was fascinated by this. Like,
It is. It's amazing.
I'm like, "Wait, we're going to just park on this concrete, and we're staying here." Then they like whip out fire pits.
Yep.
Did they have the expansions too?
Yeah, it was
push-button
really,
expansions.
it was
It's-
awesome. And hers was like a bougie RV,
Oh,
so
yeah.
it works for me. Oh, the mattress, because I was like a little unsure.
Some of those things are $500,000.
Oh, this was nice.
Some of the
bus
things are
ones,
the
like-
bus ones are like
yeah,
$500,000.
Yeah,
Can you
this-
park it in Queens?
No.
Well, that's
Can you
why we
drive
don't
in
own one
Queens?
yet.
I'd like
it's-
to see you make a turn on one of those blocks in Queens with that one of those things.
Oh my gosh! So we between Bonnaroo and Fish, we've rented RVs probably about a dozen times, and I was been living in Queens for a while this was going on. So I would go out to Comac, get the RV, and have to pick everybody up in Queens. Where I've gotten smarter in my attempt on how I'm crossing over waterways, but at one point in time, we decided to take the RV on the BQE during
Rush hour.
during a superstorm.
Oh, so it was like,
I mean, it was like there's points in time where you're
Questioning your life decisions.
like that was one of those things. And I fortunately and unfortunately, I am friends with sanitation workers. Now, if any of you guys are friends with sanitation workers, you understand that they think that garbage trucks work the same way as Hyundai Excels. So like these guys, like my buddy is driving an RV like as like one hand, like foot out the window, one arm on the steering wheel, going
the
down
foot
a
out the window.
45-degree like pitch, which is turning on a wet road in a hailstorm. And like this guy's just like going about his business. My knuckles are bleeding from squeezing and holding on tight. I came to God at that point in time. I started asking.
Sounds like a good time though.
Oh yeah, it's great. But when it comes down to actually like sitting and setting up camp, and RVs are great. I mean,
I thought it was awesome.
It's an unbelievable way to do things. Like it's really, you can do like it's obviously bed. It's bathroom. These things are crazy. You get to the point where like my buddy bought a fifth wheel. That's the one where like the RV itself gets dropped into the back of the pickup truck. Yeah. Those you have to really know how to drive and know what you're doing.
So I can still get an F-350.
Oh,
And
yeah.
Well, that's the way to do it because, like,
Yeah.
what you did, like, and I'm sure a lot of people there did it. The beauty of that is it's like you basically plant the fifth wheel on the site.
Yes.
Now you disconnect the pickup truck, and now
you
you
could
can
drive
navigate
around.
around.
I write a lot of business upstate, and so this is more popular in upstate New York than, of course, here. So I had to become like versed even in insuring trailers and double wides. Like I used to not know all this lingo. And then you're kind of like, I got to understand this,
Double
right?
wide.
Yeah,
Yes.
It's like the mansion of
Yes,
the trailers.
yes.
And on a regular RV where you're driving the actual entire unit, you can't take those on a beach. But when you have the fifth wheel, like that's another thing. So like if you're sitting there and it's like, I'm going to camp out on the beach, you're going to want a fifth wheel because that you can take the air pressure out of your tires, get this thing on the beach, pop it there.
Yeah.
And once again, disconnect your truck and be able to go and, you know, especially out east.
Hither Hills.
Yeah, you sit there and you hit Heather Hills. Then now you're playing like, you know, your Montauk game and your Hamptons games, and like you can go and do your thing. So keep that in
Yeah, that sounds like fun for
the
me.
back of your mind.
But I'm still going to build it out.
And then you could tailgate at Czech games.
Yeah, I'm
My
still going to
buddy
build
did
it out.
what you did though. He bought a Sprinter.
Yeah.
And he just minted this thing out, and it's just like I'm gonna live this life.
And it's
for a
not cheap
while.
to do it.
Sprinters
Oh,
are,
no.
base sprinters are expensive too.
Undoubtable.
People do buses.
No, but I want a
Yeah.
Sprinter. I think it's like 14 or 16 feet. I don't remember. But base Sprinter, all-wheel drive, is 70 grand.
Yeah,
Yeah, no doubt.
yeah, easily.
And then I'm going to spend another 40 to outfit it the way I want.
As opposed to just spending $125,000 and buying a sick 32
yeah.
button expansion RV that's already done for you. So good luck with that project.
Yeah.
I will be borrowing it.
I feel like a teenager again trying to build a supercar
Or
again.
just buy a house in the Midwest for that money.
Yeah, but then I can't just pick it up and go.
You could just
I mean,
go
if
there.
there's a tornado,
Oh, it's gonna get picked. It's gonna get picked up anyway. It's gonna get picked up anyway.
Another drop.
Okay, well I'm pretty satisfied with all the information Christina's been able to
Phenomenal.
provide for us.
This is great. Yeah.
I just love that you're doing this, and I think it's awesome.
It's a lot of fun.
It's a lot of fun, and I hope your audience appreciates this, and I look forward to sharing this and helping you grow.
Well, it's for everyone's benefit, especially that of the consumer looking to educate themselves, and that's really why we do this. Is we want everyone to be educated in the process, and inadvertently by doing so, making our life easier.
Was this on your bucket list to have a podcast? Like, how did it manifest?
So it manifested in the very early stages of COVID,
Okay.
where prior to COVID, I was doing a lot of first-time homebuyer seminars with HUD-approved counseling agencies.
Okay.
Long Island Housing Partnership?
Yes, and NHS and all these other smaller things. And I really liked connecting with a large number of buyers at a time, hold their hand and walk them through the process, because these agencies have a strict protocol of, you have to do the realtor portion, you have to do the attorney portion, you have to do the mortgage portion, and you also have to do a handyman portion.
Oh.
Right, because a lot of these agencies at that time, prior to COVID, were the gateway to financial assistance, down payment assistance specifically.
Got it.
Right, so the government, they're setting you up for success. So, and I missed that during COVID, and how I offset that was by trying to do the Zoom way, which was great for me, but not so much for the people who were not technologically inclined. So now I'm like, wait a second, something's got to give. So I've had this burning desire, and these two gents are always a wealth of knowledge and always keep me on the right track, and keep it entertaining. So, and we've had good working relationship prior to this.
Don't stop. Keep going.
Yeah,
with the
yeah.
compliments.
We've had
Keep going. We love it.
the three of us have worked phenomenally together on multiple transactions. So I wanted to harvest that energy, motivation, and help everyone.
I think it's awesome.
Yeah, it's working
Kudos.
out great.
Yeah. And we appreciate you coming here.
Oh,
and
my
sharing
pleasure.
Your
I
wealth
love-
of knowledge. And
Love doing this kind of stuff.
Yeah, it was
And I'm
fun.
excited for the micros. Get this up on my Instagram. I'm
Oh
always
yeah,
looking for fresh
you're gonna
content.
you're gonna have so much fun, because the I guess it's called B-roll, the little clippets in between make it so entertaining. I don't know.
And people want to see like the raw
Yeah, they love it.
yeah.
stuff. Yeah, right. Yeah.
Thanks, Christina, for joining us and
Thank
sharing
you.
your wealth of insurance knowledge. It was
Loved it.
fantastic and great information. You're welcome to come by anytime, and we will invite you back at a later date for a future episode.
Co-ops.
Co-ops,
Oh, that's my
condos, and
jam.
more.
I love
Walls
co-ops
in
and
coverage.
condos.
Let's
That's
go.
my jam.
Let's go.
Ask me any question. I got the answer.
Oh, yeah, I got the two right gentlemen for you right here. So thanks for coming.
Thank
Have
you.
a great new year, and we look forward to seeing you again.
You as well.
Thanks, guys.
Always a pleasure.
Mr. Marcus, thank you, and Christina, thank you as well, and Lysandra, you're a gracious host.
Thank you, Mr. Kleiger. You're always welcome.
As we wrap up this real estate adventure, remember, every key we've shared opens a door to your property dreams. Thank you for joining us on Keys to the Castle. If you enjoyed the journey, please take a moment to leave a 5-star review. Your feedback means the world to us. Don't forget to follow us on social media for the latest updates. And you can find our contact information in the show description. Until next time, happy house hunting, and thank you for listening.